Like a lot of old cities, the origins of Prague are a bit mysterious and they're muddied by national myth. And since part of what this channel is about is exploring mythology and folklore, today's chapter is going to explore the story behind the city named for Praha, the threshold. Um, as early as like 200 BC, Celts were living in the area, but the current city is supposed to date back to the 8th or 9th century, and its settlements connected to the legend of Libuše and her peasant husband Premisi. But first, we got to go back to Libuše's dad, Duke Krok. And I'm not going to get into all the conflicting accounts, like he was the first judge or duke of the Czech people, or that there was supposed to be a Polish connection. Others say there's a Celtic connection. Some say that Krok moved his capital to Vyšehrad around 683, which makes it a bit earlier than the centuries that I happen to mention. But Cosimus of Prague wrote in the Chronica Bohemorum that before Krok, the first inhabitants of Bohemia, who at first lived very simply and didn't know of alcohol or marriages, private property or weapons, that they fell after a time into injustice and envy. And according to Cosmas, the people had, quote, neither the judge nor the prince, unquote. So Krok rose amongst the people. He was described by Cosmas as a man known for his age, absolutely perfect, rich and worldly in his judgments, and sophisticated. This wonderful man had no male heirs, but rather 3 daughters, whom nature had granted the treasures of wisdom. So Cosmas of Prague, he's a church scholar. And so there's like pagan elements in the legend, and he's going to have a real hard time trying to fit them into his Christian historical framework. Like he's going to turn the sisters Kazi, who did medicine, and Teta, I guess it's pronounced Thethka, as a maker of poison potions, and the other's an evil witch. But he's got a hard time trash talking Libuše. He can't make her entirely negative. He's siding with the pro-Bohemian sentiment and seeing her as a heroic figure and praising her for her chastity and wisdom in judicial affairs and her speech and her honesty. But he's got a bit of an issue with the soothsaying, with the prophecies, claiming it was a deception against the people. And it's here we're going to start the story. Who will tell us of the things of old, of the things of old, and of the things that have been, of Krok the ruler, of Krok the duke, and of his daughter Libuše, of that Libuše, who found a husband and made him king? Long ago there was a man named Krok, a judge, a duke, who rose up from the masses to restore order when prosperity set the previously content and simple people fighting amongst themselves. But he had no sons to succeed him and maintain what he had built. He did, however, have 3 daughters, Kazi, Teta, and Libuše. Kazi was gifted with the art of medicine and healed those in her father's realm. Teta was the high priestess of their religion, and Libuše wore the gift of prophecy about her, or so she said. She would fall into a trance and make predictions that would inevitably come true. And although she was the youngest, Krok also saw she was the wisest of the 3 and selected her to succeed him. And so she did when her father passed. She looked out from the hill at Vyšehrad and foretold the future. I see a great city whose glory will touch the stars, she said, declaring the name of the city to be Praha, the threshold, and commanded that it be built. Although she proved herself as a wise chieftain, The male part of the tribe was displeased that their ruler was a woman and demanded that she marry. But Libuše had fallen in love with a peasant plowman, Primisil. She therefore related a vision in which she saw a farmer with one broken bast shoe, making the best use of his teeth at midday and later eating at an iron table. She let fate decide by letting a horse lead her to her husband. Libuše secretly urged the horse to go to the man she had seen before and had already chosen for herself. When the counselors, carrying royal raiment, followed the horse, they found Primisil, who had been plowing a field near the village of Stadice. They noted his broken bast shoe. Here it was midday, and while others were eating, he was making use of his saw on a tree limb, using his saw's teeth. "What are you making?" they asked. Primisil replied, "Pra," or threshold. This caused a stir amongst the counselors. He then invited them to lunch and turned his plow on its side, and he made a makeshift iron table to eat from. Again, it's the legend. Seeing this, they urged him to change his garb and return to the castle with them. At first he protested. He had not finished plowing, but the counselors were insistent. So Primisil Orash, the plowman, before he left, planted a staff in the ground and removed his peasant's bast shoes before donning the royal robes. And he ordered the counselors, "Bring the shoes with us and keep them as a reminder to the people that a peasant had risen to the highest of ranks, and to his successors to be humble, remember their origins, and to defend the peasantry." Primisil was brought to the princely palace where Libuše married him, and Primisil the plowman thus became ruler. They went on to have 3 sons, Radobil, Lidomir, and Nezamisil, who continued the Preslimiid dynasty in the Czech lands. But there were ill omens, because the counselors found him before he had finished plowing the field and would not permit him to finish. Famine was anticipated for the land and did actually come about. That hazelwood staff that Primisil planted, it grew and had 3 sprouts on it, and 2 of those sprouts died. And the common folk often spoke of how that compared with the first 2 sons of Primisil and Libuše. Radobil and Lidomir both died, but the 3rd son, Nezamisil, he lived and he continued the dynasty. Legend also has it that the staff continued to grow into a full-sized hazelnut tree, and that the inhabitants of the neighboring town were given a grant exempting them from paying taxes except for providing 1 pint of hazelnuts a year, and that this was to have continued up through the reign of the Holy Roman Emperor Charles IV. Well, that's the story of Libuše and the founding of Prague. I hope you stick around and watch more of the channel. Until then, do pobачення.